Well, obviously to some extent, because Qatar is an American ally and host to the largest American Air Force base outside the United States. But then again, nobody expects much from Trump at this point. It's very clear that he is not particularly keen on what American national security interests are and has no real interest in defining them. It's worth mentioning that Trump is not necessarily beholden to Israel, certainly not as ideologically tied to Israel as the Biden administration was. So, while Trump may have taken a blow here and may have seemed reckless and not as protective of his allies as one might expect, this may cost Israel in the future should Trump choose to distance himself from Israel and Israel's leadership. The answer is obvious. Israel did not kill any of the people it set out to kill. Then again, perhaps its objectives need to be redefined. Israel did not necessarily want to kill Hamas's leaders. I mean, Israel has killed Hamas leaders repeatedly over the past 2 years and over the past 4 decades. It has never resulted in the organization's activities dying down. Israel wanted to do two things. One is generate noise and confusion and to show that it is capable of attacking anywhere it wants, whenever it wants, without any kind of price to pay. I think it may have managed to do that, at least in the short term. And Israel also wanted to generate noise and confusion for the purpose of continuing what it has been doing regularly for some time now, which is the ethnic cleansing of Gaza and the genocide against the Palestinian people. Those were the main reasons for the attack, not any attempt to kill the Hamas negotiation team or to do away with Hamas leadership. This is about Israel's chosen course of action. Israelis support Netanyahu's strike on Qatar. That is the great paradox of the collective Israeli consciousness. On the one hand, they don't trust Netanyahu. They think Netanyahu's management of the war in Gaza is faulty, but they support Netanyahu's genocidal efforts. They support the notion that Israel should be allowed to take responsibility into its own hands whenever and wherever it wants. And more than anything, they support the poorly defined notion of destroying Hamas. And when I say poorly defined, I mean that for most Israelis, and they have no problem with that, destroying Hamas actually means destroying Gaza and expelling all of its population. So across the board, Israelis are supporting Netanyahu's strike on Qatar. I think we're going to see a change in the world's reaction. I mean, the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has already announced that sanctions will be imposed on Israel and that the association agreement of the EU with Israel will be partially suspended. We're headed towards a United Nations General Assembly meeting where wide recognition of a Palestinian state is expected as well. I think this is gathering momentum. So I don't think the world will take what Israel did very easily. However, that won't stop Israel from continuing to carry out its genocidal policies in Gaza. And I believe we won't see any sort of major change in that respect anytime soon, perhaps after the UNGA, when the world decides what kind of sanctions it wants to impose. But I'm not sure we will see sanctions. So what Israel will continue to do is what Israel has been doing so far, that is kill 100 Palestinians a day, and perhaps attempt to strike at Hamas leaders in other destinations. Turkey comes to mind, but so do other places. They could have a major effect. The EU has been the single most delaying player when it comes to global attention towards Israel, except for the United States, but the United States doesn't really count. The United States has always stood with Israel. Trump has always stood with Israel, so nobody really expected the United States to play a significant part in changing Israeli policies. The fact that the EU, and specifically President von der Leyen, who is right-wing, has always been an ally of Israel, is prepared to suspend, to take the required action to suspend, at least partially, the EU's association agreement with Israel is quite significant. That means she will have to butt heads with Hungary and Romania and the few other countries that oppose such sanctions. And that means she's willing to take action within the EU apparatus, which the EU high brass have not been ready to do so far. This means that the momentum is changing. Israel is losing the few options it has left. It has already gone fully rogue by violating international law, so clearly and overtly, and now the implications are going to start to pile up. I would assume that it was, but it was given very, very short forewarning. I believe the Qataris say that they were informed as explosions were being heard all around Doha. I'm sure that's partially true. And the most elaborate scenario I can think of is that the Americans alerted the Qataris in time, and the Qataris told Hamas leadership to escape the scene very quickly, thus staying both friends with Hamas and maintaining standing in the Arab world while cooperating with the United States on this strike. I don't know if that's true, but it's very obvious the Qataris did not have time to prepare. Even if they were notified, it's very obvious that the Israelis did not notify the Qataris. And that is a big deal because Israel and Qatar have a long-standing security relationship. Israel just very bluntly spat in Qatar's face when it carried out the strike. Was Qatar informed of the Israeli strike? That's a question that a lot of people are asking. I would assume that it was, but it was given very, very short warning. I believe the Qataris say that they were informed as explosions were being heard all around Doha. I'm sure that's partially true. And the most elaborate scenario I can think of is that the Americans alerted the Qataris in time, and the Qataris told Hamas leadership to escape the scene very quickly, thus staying both friends with Hamas and maintaining standing in the Arab world while cooperating with the United States on this strike. I don't know if that's true, but it's very obvious the Qataris did not have time to prepare. Even if they were notified, it's very obvious that the Israelis did not notify the Qataris. And that is a big deal because Israel and Qatar have a long-standing security relationship. Israel just very bluntly spat in Qatar's face when it carried out this strike. Is the rebuke from Trump to Israel significant? Trump stated that the Israeli attack was not organized in collaboration with the Americans, that it harms Israeli interests, that it doesn't promote peace. It's hard to tell. Trump seemed very confused. It wasn't clear what he knew and what he didn't know. The idea that the United States knew nothing and was not privy to at least the technical details of the attack seems strange because, again, of the huge American Air Force presence in Qatar and because Israel does tend to coordinate such actions with the Americans. It does, however, make sense that Israel did not give the Americans real time to respond, that it basically called them just before the attack was to take place and notified them that it would. Israeli airplanes did not enter Qatari airspace. They fired missiles far outside Qatar's borders and airspace. So no real permission was required from the Americans or from the Qataris. That's why Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu took full responsibility and said this was exclusively an Israeli attack. The Trump's rebuke is significant because Trump divides the world into winners and losers. So far, he has been willing to think of Netanyahu as a winner, but if Trump gets a sense that the world is dropping Israel, Trump will drop Israel as well. He has no emotional, ideological ties to Israel in any capacity. He doesn't owe his evangelical base anything when it comes to Israel. If he sees Israel as a liability or as a player that could lead to a war that would require American forces to get involved, which is something he promised his voters would not happen, if that happens, Trump will no doubt drop Israel like a hot potato. I don't know if it was mainly to uphold his own status. I think Netanyahu genuinely believes in his new security doctrine, which is that Israel should be allowed to do whatever it wants, whenever it wants, wherever it wants, to whomever it wants, for as long as it wants. I think that's the only way he feels Israel is secure after the Hamas attack of October 7th, 2023. And in that sense, it's exactly what he's doing. Whenever he's threatened, he opens a new front. He does his best to carry the war outside. Whenever he feels that his control over issues inside Israel is slipping or deteriorating. The terror attack near Jerusalem was one such deterioration, so it's not surprising that he chose a strike on Qatar, which is by all means a big deal. So I guess my answer would be that for Netanyahu, there's no real difference between his personal political status and Israel's foreign policy. He really does truly believe Israel's welfare and interests are best served by having himself at the helm, and anything that potentially harms his tenure as prime minister is harmful for the country. Do I think negotiations will resume? I don't think they will resume anytime soon. I think now we will all wait for the United Nations General Assembly. We will see what the response will be in the Palestinian Authority to the recognition of Palestine as an independent state. This might prove to be more dramatic than we're thinking now. And in any case, nobody quite knows what to expect from Israel, and that is what Israel wanted. Israel wanted to put, as the Americans say, the fear of God into the hearts of everyone involved, including its potential friends. Israel doesn't want friends, and Israel also wants to continue the ethnic cleansing and the genocide of the Palestinian people in Gaza.